Never mind. I will read Bhashya to myself. The name for the Yamuna river in the Rig Veda, Yamuna is apparently a modern name, is Amshumati in the Rig Veda. Amshumati, very interesting. And then another interesting bit from the Bhashya. Not finding it right now. It will come. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma Vishravahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Pathaya Pratibodhitam Bhagavata Narayanena Swayam Vyasena Grathitam Puranamunina Madhye Mahabharatam Advaitamritavarshinim Bhagavatim Ashtadashaadhyayinim Amba Tvamanusandaddhami Bhagavad Gite Bhavadveshinim. Namostute Vyasa Vishala Buddhe Phullaravindayata Patra Netra Yena Tvaya Bharata Tailapurnaha Prajvalito Jnanamaya Pradipaha Prapanna Parijataya Totra Vetraikaparnaye Jnanamudraya Krishnaya Gita Mritaduhe Namaha. Sarvopanishado Gavaha Dogha
गोपालनन्दनः पार्थो वत्सः सुधीर्भोक्ता दुग्धं गीतामृतं महत् वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुम् भीष्मद्रोणतटा जयद्रथजला गान्धारनीलोत्पला शल्यग्राहवती कृपेण वहनी कर्णेन वेलाकुला अश्वत्थामविकर्णघोरमकरा दुर्योधनावर्तिनी सोत्तीर्णा खलु पाण्डवैरणनदी कैवर्तकः केशवः पाराशर्यवचः सरोजममलम् गीतार्थगन्धोत्कटम् नानाख्यानककेसरं हरिकथा सम्बोधनाबोधितम् लोके सज्जनषट्पदैरहरहः पेपीयमानं मुदा भूयाद्भारतपङ्कजं कलिमलप्रध्वंसिन श्रेयसे मूकं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुल्लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे परमानन्दमाधवम् यं ब्रह्मा वरुणेन्द्ररुद्रमरुतः स्तुन्वन्ति दिव्यैस्तवैः वेदैः साङ्गपदक्रमोपनिषदैः ध्यायन्ति यं सामगाः ध्यानावस्थिततद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनः यस्यान्तन्न विदुःसुरासुरगणाः देवाय तस्मै नमः देवाय तस्मै नमः. So this question of is the knowledge enough? This is what we were discussing, And the Laukika answer is no. The knowledge is not enough. It needs to be cooked. It needs to be pickled. And when you put a new pickle, it has to absorb the juices. Whatever you make, it has to absorb the juices. And it takes time. It has to percolate. It's like coffee. It has to decant. It has to do all kinds of things. This is what is the prevalent misconception. Why? Because the people who are propounding these philosophies come from a place of doership. Yeah. And they don't know it. At least Arjuna is better. Arjuna also came from a place of doership. But he said, I'm helpless. Shishyastheham shadhimam tvam prapannam. I take recourse in you. I take refuge in you. I don't know what to do. I'm at a loss. When you recognize your helplessness, you're no longer helpless. Because you've already got into the witness stage. But these people who are propounding these philosophies and have been propounding them since time immemorial are not aware of this helplessness, neither are they aware of how entrenched this philosophy is coming from the subjectivity of the identification of oneself as the doer. So therefore, the knowledge is not enough. Because they say, I have done Vedanta, nothing happened. So what did you do now? Well, I started a company, I floated a company. Because I felt like I was sinking. So I had to float something. So I floated a company. This is what the whole thing is, that understanding is not there. And not only that, it's almost like the Shastra is made to go through their own subjective vision. The Shastra is refracted through their subjective vision of not being enough. When you put a pencil in a glass of water, what happens? Yeah, it looks bent. It's not bent. It looks bent. And that's what happens to the vision, to the wrong vision. Kudrishti, this is called by Adi Shankara in another place. Kudrishtayaha, these people who have kudrishti, who are committed to their own misunderstanding, and they want the backup of the Shastra to ratify their misunderstanding. So Tattvamasi becomes Atattvamasi, Upadekshanti te Jnanam. They will definitely teach you knowledge, self-knowledge becomes Upadekshanti te Ajnanam. This is the problem. And so therefore, all these so-called philosophies that have sprung up from Adi Shankara's time, which he is always contending with in all of his commentaries, which have even a prevalence now, is all about doership. And some of it is an innocent misleading, because it's like the blind leading the blind. They themselves don't know. They fall into a ditch. And then they have all their followers fall on them. That's all it is. And everyone gets up and, moves along until they collide into a tree, all of them. But this is a deliberate, some of it is a deliberate misleading to bank upon, to manipulate the doership in all the people. This is very dangerous. Some of the philosophies do that by propagating that you will get moksha if you stand on your nose, if you stand on your toes, if you catch something, if you breathe. Air is free, breathing is involuntary, and then there is a big charge for mokshik breathing, Once in a while you breathe and you do this and you do that and you will get moksha. This is a deliberate manipulation of exploiting people's, already people are stuck in the doership. This is the way to exploit the doership. So you cannot bend the Shastra to make it show your pet philosophy, to make it espouse your pet philosophy. And this is what Adi Shankara takes issue with, and he holds the cudgels against these people. And first he makes it clear that this Bhagavad Gita is not made by human hands. And he calls Vyasa Bhagavan. And he says Vyasa is reporting what happened. Vyasa is not making up the teaching. And the teaching happened, we don't know when, and but we know why, and we know how. And Vyasa is merely a sutradhara, a narrator, like Sanjaya. In other words, Vyasa is like the alter ego of Sanjaya. Sanjaya, everything is Sanjaya Uvacha. Sanjaya said, And, Vyasa is the alter ego of this Sanjaya. In other ways, he is like a super narrator of the Bhagavad Gita. And he is not making this stuff up. And Adi Shankara says that this is, what I am going to say may not be popular, but it is needed. And then he says that we have to understand a few things, is that when people get embroiled in doership completely, they become samsaris, because they are, it's a pattern of addiction. The more you do, the more it undoes you, and the more you keep doing again, and then you get undone, and it's like a cycle that reproduces itself. So this doership, not the doing, but the identity with the doing, has to be settled, has to be cleaned up. And he says that this is what makes one into a samsari. This is the cause of delusion. And he says, as we can see, in Arjuna's condition. And the second thing he says is that whenever dharma slides down, that means the identification with doership is so much that one has lost their way, the ends have justified the means, adharma is on the rise. So there is a big imbalance in this.
Yeah.
And then Bhagavan has promised, not just in the Bhagavad Gita, because how do I know? Because Bhagavad Gita we have not yet studied, but even elsewhere, even in the Kenopanishad there is avatara. Yeah, there is avatara. And in fact there are two avataras. One the Yaksha comes, and then Haimavati Uma comes. Yeah. And and Haimavati Uma manifests herself as a teacher and teaches. And so therefore, this understanding which is there in the Hindu tradition, that when the balance of dharma and adharma is skewed, not when there is too much dharma, the other way around. When there is too much adharma, then what happens? Bhagavan will take avatara to fix this situation. And so he did. That is what Bhagavan Krishna's coming was all about. And he says this coming is not some kind of a immaculate birth. It is a birth which is not in ignorance like all other births. It is an immaculate birth. That's why we have all these, what's the word for it? Stories and these mystical things happening around the birth of Krishna. When Krishna was born, all the shackles go and Yamuna parts. And then, he's able to go and leave the baby there. There is a death threat even before he's born, so the boy has to be saved and all these things. So it came with a prophecy. And so this kind of a birth is not because of his own karma. It's because of the few dharmic people not being able to digest this adharma, have taken to a life of prayer and are saying, please help, please come, are you deaf, are you blind, don't you see what is happening, are you even there, where are you? And this is the response of that praying, that Narayana took Narayana means Narasya Ayanam, the goal of the human being, took this avatara, ava plus tru, to be born with full knowledge, not like human beings, Adi Shankara wants, who are born in ignorance. Here, keeping the Maya under check, not being swayed or coming under the sway of Maya like all other jivas do. Soon they start to sway because from the path of dharma, because they have come under the spell of Maya. So unswayed by Maya. Because who is Maya after all? It is himself alone. He himself is Maya. It's just a transgendered persona here. From the standpoint of the matter, we say Maya. From the standpoint of the intelligence, we say Bhagavan. It's all one and the same. Bhagavan includes Maya. And Maya is not some parallel reality, evil, devil. We don't have that concept. None of it is there. All there is just this Bhagavan, who deploys this Maya, which Maya becomes a kind of a barrier between oneself as Bhagavan and Bhagavan that one seeks to be, one seeks to know. And that same barrier becomes an arsenal of creativity for this all-knowledge being, Bhagavan. Yeah. Struck by this arsenal, one feels wounded by Maya, but not the wielder of Maya is never wounded by or grounded by Maya at all. And so, out of his limitless compassion, he took on this avatara and he decided that this is a time has come to balance dharma and adharma, so that adharma is not on the rise, and protect the people who prayed, even though they didn't pray for their own protection, they might have prayed for world peace, but still it is their karma phala too, so they also get protected, so that they need to be protected because they are the few people still following dharma. You cannot protect dharma without protecting the dharmin, dharmi. Dharmi means the one who is followed, because dharma is not some abstract thing. How are you going to find out where is dharma? Hello, dharma, where are you? Dharma cannot be dissociated from the person who is following dharma. So if you want to protect dharma, what do you have to do? You have to protect the person who is following dharma. And such a person in the introductory bhashya is called Brahmana. Brahmani charati, the one who moves in Brahman, who is dedicated to Brahman, who is dedicated to dharma. So then, this is what he says. And then he gives the exposition of the word Bhagavan, because Bhagavad Gita. And how do you split the samasa here? Bhagavad Gita. What do? You say in English, Bhagavad Gita. How do you? 6TP. What is 6TP? Yeah. Bhagavataha Gita. The song of the Lord. Yeah. Song of the Lord means what? The song whose author is the Lord. We can take that one derivation. Another and most important derivation, the song for which the subject matter is the Lord. Karmani Shashti. Kartari and Karmani both you can take. And in fact, there is no such word called Gita. There simply isn't. It's neuter. Gitam. So why isn't the title Bhagavad Gitam? Why is it Bhagavad Gita? Kimartham? Because she who deludes is Maya. She who enlightens is also a she. That same Maya from the standpoint of Bhagavan is all knowledge. Mother Shruti, she becomes. She is the voice of Bhagavan. She is the creative power. So in honor of all that is feminine, we have crafted a new word. We haven't. We are just taking the credit for it, all of us. But Vyasa crafted a new word, Gita. That is a salute to the mother. Salute to Mother Shruti, who is in the form of these 700 verses, whose voice we hear, and whose melody, Gitam Iva Gitam. It's like, not that it's a song, you're not supposed to sing it. You're not supposed to go Dharma Kshetre, not like that. It's not some alapanam. It's not a raga. Gitam Iva Gitam. It's like a song. And what does the song do? A song uplifts. This uplifts. Without, doing anything, this uplifts. The song pacifies, this pacifies. The song inspires, this inspires. The song stirs the soul, something deep within, and brings me back to myself, at least momentarily. This also does that. It's even better than a regular song, because the song finishes in 5 seconds, 5 minutes. And the message of this song echoes as oneself forever. This is what it is. Because this is the song of limitlessness. And this I talked about yesterday, that a song whose goal is liberation. And Adi Shankara makes it very clear that the author is not Mr. Krishna or Dr. Krishna, M.A. PhD. It is Bhagavan. And who is this Bhagavan? 6 bhagas are talked about. Aishwaryam, overlordship. What kind of Aishwaryam? Samagram, total, uncontested, complete overlordship. It's not like Indian sovereignty. Except Nepal here, except Kashmir there, except Bhutan here, except the northeast right off because everyone is, seceding or wanting to secede. This is not, it's not like Indian sovereignty. And especially seen through the American eyes, the map looks like, I don't know what. Horrible. Avalakshana, horrible. And this is not like that kind of a sovereignty. Aishwaryam here is total. It's not like, except this little portion, Bhagavan rules everything. Except this portion of Kashmir, Bhagavan is in charge. Yeah, this is crazy. So that's why the word samagram, qualifying Aishwaryam and all the other 5 qualities here, attributes, is very important. So you don't just say Aishwaryam, you say samagram Aishwaryam, overlordship. What is the use of having overlordship without resources? A treasury is khali, empty, and then here there is the overlord of all. Useless. So therefore what? Samagra Shrihi. All abundance, all prosperity, all wealth, mineral, wealth, gold, diamonds, etc. Anything in any treasury belongs to Vishnu. Yeah, because that's why Lakshmi is wedded to Vishnu. Don't think that Lakshmi belongs to you. That's why she leaves. As soon as you think that she's mine, she says, oh no, dearie. Bye. She's off. Yeah, she's better off with Vishnu. Yeah, she just comes in a while to have a cup of tea and you feel blessed, fine, the whole house rains in gold, enough, But if you try to tie her up and keep her in a room, yeah, she knows how to disappear. Not only that, she leaves her twin sister behind. Oh, who is that? Lakshmi, yeah. Who is that twin sister? The twin sister is my own scarcity mentality. It's not some real, some kind of a thing. My own shadow becomes Lakshmi's shadow. If I am full of abundance, I am that Lakshmi. This is what it is. And so Samagra Shrihi, all wealth belongs to who? Of all kinds. But then, Bhagavan should be a glutton, complete overlord, and all wealth. Because that's what happens. Bhagavan must be having big orgies, parties where, everything is just keeping on eating. No. Samagram Vairagyam. The ability to handle this overlordship and wealth, Shri, resources, and the Shakti, the ability to wield this Shakti without getting into the head. Otherwise, somebody, you put them for 5 minutes in a position of power, they start ruling. Hey, sit down. Hey, get up. What are you doing? Oh, I have become the CEO. Oh, wonderful. Oh, why do you have to have your head in the cloth? No, that's with the posture. I have to become like this. Cannot handle power. Because when something good happens, they go hit the ceiling. And then you have a long way to fall down in the next minute. Because these days everybody lives in vaulted houses, vaulted ceilings. So you vault up and you waltz down. Gracelessly. And so therefore what? Therefore this has to be understood that this Vairagyam, that's why everything that you offer to Bhagavan, in little glass dishes, is all becomes dinner, correct? Not Bhagavan's dinner, your dinner. Why? Because full of Vairagya. You just show it's enough. Yes. Paroksha Priya. And there is no holding, no holding. It's all just is. And therefore, Samagram, Vairagyam. And Vairagya does not come without Jnana. Vairagya and Jnana go together. Because the Vairagya goes hand in hand with all knowledge. Samagram Jnanam. All knowledge. All knowledge. And this all knowledge of everything specific and everything general, it's all there. And the knowledge to not get carried away by one's own maya, that is also knowledge. Self-knowledge is there. Knowledge of non-self is there. Anatma knowledge, it includes Atma knowledge, it includes, what else is left? Nothing. Bhagavan is the embodiment of that. How many have we covered? 4. Yeah. Then Balam. Samagram Balam. Balam means what? Strength. Bhagavan is Balavan. One means possessor. Samagram Balam. All strength. That's why when we have the depiction of Bhagavan in any kind of icons, we have 4 hands, 8 hands to show more strength. But you really cannot show 1,000 hands, more than 1,000. We have to stop at 1,000. Sahasra Shirsha Purushah, Sahasrakshas, Sahasrapads, 1,000 feet, 1,000 hands. We can say that and we stop there. But it means infinite strength. And then finally, Samarthyam, the ability to manifest, sustain and take back this universe. This is what constitutes Bhagavan. And Adi Shankara makes it clear that Bhagavan doesn't have anything to gain by coming in the middle of the Mahabharata and teaching this Gita. He is doing it for Arjuna. And a very beautiful set of words here used by Adi Shankara. Arjunaya shoka mohadadhau nimagnaya. To the Arjuna who is glubbing. Nimagna means buried, drowning. Unto Arjuna who is drowning in abdhi. Abdhi means what? Ocean. What kind of abdhi? Shokabdhi and then mohabdhi. The ocean of sorrow and the ocean of delusion. Ayyo, I thought he was on one ocean. How can one drown in two oceans? In samsara, everything is possible. You can drown simultaneously in 10 oceans, I tell you. Anything is possible in samsara. It's a severe thing. Yeah. And some days one feels like one is drowning in 10 oceans. So here only 2 are named. Yeah, the other 8 are unnamed. In this Shokabdhi and Mohabdhi, for the glub one, Nimagnaya Arjunaya, out of just no other reason, but out of compassion. Because someone asked, please teach. This Arjuna asked. And he said, okay. And this Bhagavan just taught for no personal gain and no personal agenda that I am going to make all these people into jnanis. I created so many jnanis. Yippee. No such thing. Totally free of personal agenda. Because there is no personality here, only person. Purusha is there. No personality, so where is the agenda? And so Adi Shankara in his introductory bhashya makes it clear that the teaching is without any matlab. Matlab means what? Purpose, selfish purpose. Other than, he says, atyanta samsara, nivrittihi. Yeah. Nivrittihi means removal of samsara. Atyanta means this extreme samsara. So when samsara is extreme, the measures for removing it also must be extreme. So if you get a thorn in the finger, You have to use another pin or thorn, some sharp thing. And only the diamond will cut another diamond. These are all sayings. So this way, if the samsara is extreme, the teaching also has to take on a serious note for this nivritti of samsara to take place. So really speaking, he says, and I mentioned this yesterday, this is a treatise of liberation, not a treatise of doership. Then again, he speaks to certain contenders in this whole Jnana Karma Samachaya Vada, which he's going to talk again in, I think it's the long Bhashya in the 18th verse of the second chapter. He's going to return to that. But for now, he just touches upon it. And he says that, that this knowledge alone is the liberation. It doesn't need another thing to, to be done afterwards. You don't have to keep it in an oven, and you don't have to bake it, you don't have to cook it, you don't have to simmer it, you don't have to cool it, chill it, put it in the freezer. Nothing needs to be done. The knowledge is liberation. It's not so much the knowledge of liberation. The knowledge itself is liberation. So there is no 6 TP here, knowledge of liberation, because it's like saying head of Rahu, or head of a cauliflower, because people in the West don't know Rahu. And I find that it takes me a long time to explain, and then, we run short of time. So now I'm changing it to head of cabbage and head of cauliflower. So you go to the grocers and say, where are the heads of cauliflower kept? It's all head. Only when there is the tail of cauliflower you have to worry about the head. Only when there is the tail of cabbage you have to worry where is the head. But if it's already head of cauliflower is what is called aupachariki shashti. A shashti just for upachara, just for saying something. That's all. Just a formality. Head of cauliflower, head of cabbage. This is how it is. So the knowledge of liberation. Knowledge is liberation. There's nothing more to do. Yet, Shankara concedes that there is a great amount of pages in the Bhagavad Gita devoted to defining dharma. The question is why? And he also concedes that this emphasis on dharma in the Bhagavad Gita has been the cause of misleading people, because they have only seen that dharma part and they have caught on to it, latched on to it with the clause of doership. So much so that the doing and dharma, because dharma is all about doing. It's about how to do, it's about what to do, it's about when to do. Nitya karma comes into place, naimittika karma comes into the place. And then, and the Shastra has all these vihita karmas. Monday, Wednesday, Friday you do this. Tuesday, Thursday you do something else. And then Wednesday, Saturday, Sunday, another things you do, Then Monday you finish, you undo everything you did on Saturday, Sunday. So this is what the first portion of the Veda says. And the people are not ready, for whatever reason, to chuck away the first portion of the Veda. They keep quoting it constantly, and Adi Shankara says, without saying it, shame on them, because they are not seeing that as many quotations that they say about from the Upanishads that they can take and say that, oh, Satyam vada dharmanchara swadhyaya anma pramadaha. Speak the truth, dharma, do dharma. Speak the truth, follow dharma. Don't neglect the study of the Veda, your own Veda. Matrudevo bhava, pitrudevo bhava, acharya devo bhava. And again in another place, annanna nindyat tadvratam. Na kanchana vasatau pratyachakshita tadvratam. Meaning this is a vow. Don't insult the food. Again dharma. Don't take more than you can finish. take as much on your plate as you can finish. Don't waste the food. That's what you say, no? In America, what do they say? Eyes are bigger than the intestines. No, stomach. Yeah, so, eyes are bigger than the stomach. And, so you bite off more than you take, more than you can fit in the mouth and fit in the stomach. So this is what is a universal dharma, samanya dharma. That's why it's there in every culture. People in the West are told by the mothers in the West tell their children, finish everything on your plate. Why? Because the children in India are starving. And Indian children are told by their mothers, finish everything on your plate. Because the children in America think you are starving. So you see, this is universal dharma. And people catch hold of these kinds of sentences in Bhagavad Gita. Yukta ahara, yukta vihara, yukta cheshta karmasu. All these things, yukta, yogi bhava, tasmat, dharmam chara, all these things. These tasmat logic, therefore logic, they take and then they just, weave a garland full of dharmic, verses with dharmic overtones. And then, equipped with this, armed with this, come to enter into a debate and say, Bhagavad Gita is all about dharma and it's all about therefore doing karma. Karma Shastra. Adi Shankara says, are you blind? No, better still, you have one eye closed. This is what happens when you read with one eye. Only selected things come up, And the people who have one eye closed are pirates. Yeah. They are pirates of the Upanishad. They have distorted the vision of the Upanishad. They have stolen away only certain parts and then not looked at certain other parts. In fact, they think they have stolen the treasure, but the treasure is not there. And even in this very Bhagavad Gita, he quotes that dharma is a means, not an end. End is even in the Veda and even in the Bhagavad Gita, which is iterating the Veda in a different way. It's a different iteration. And what is the purport of this? The purport is not dharma for its own sake. The purport is liberation from samsara. Yes. So from dharma now / karma, I go into what? Knowledge / dharma, karma. Knowledge, renunciation. That is the thing. Here karma pravritti and there karma nivritti. Sarva karma sannyasa. So here, the knowledge is equal to renunciation. Dharma is equal to karma. This is how it is seen. A very interesting and a beautiful overlay actually. Dharma is equal to karma because when the dharma expresses itself, it is through action. Otherwise, even the bank robber will say, I am a very dharmic person and sit quietly. So, dharma expresses itself to action. And so, therefore what? So, and then knowledge and the fruits thereof express themselves in inaction. Or rather, transcending the need to be identified as a doer. That's what it is. Even though they say inaction, we have to interpret it properly. Otherwise, we'll get into some other messes as we keep going. We have to be very careful here. Very, very careful. So here he says that, see, look at this equation. Dharma is equal to action. And then dharma is also found where? In the first portion of the Veda. And knowledge is equal to renunciation, which is found in the second portion of the Veda. And the proponents of the doership say that this knowledge, they are frightened of renunciation. a fear that continues in all minds to this day. Because even to give up the smallness means giving up. Oh my God, what will I do? Where will I go? At least I was holding on to nothing. See, nothing. I was holding on to nothing. And the verses of the Bhagavad Gita, Dharma kshetre kurukshetre samavetayu yutsavaha, made me drop that nothing. Oh, I dropped nothing. I was holding on to nothing. At least I had nothing. I had a lot of nothing. Now I have a little bit of nothing. And now don't make me give up even this little bit of nothing. That I am holding on to. But what are you holding on to? Nothing. How can you hold on to non-existent? Well, there are ways. So he says, Adi Shankara says, that this giving up frightens people so much, and this wrong mal-association with doership keeps them in dharma/karma bank, in that bank, not in the ATM bank on this side of the shore of samsara, on this bank. Why? Because they are too afraid. That is what will happen. There is fear and there is wrong understanding. Both together are not a very happy combination to crossing over to the other bank. So you keep banking on your own limitations and holding on and nursing the limitations, singing them lullabies. So every class is a lullaby, the limitations go to sleep, but then they come back. So he says that this is a very unhappy combination, that the means, whereby the means which is dharma has become the end. And when the means become the end, there is no more end other than sorrow. Glub, glub, glub is the end. And this is the problem with all the people, and this is why they are unable to give up the doership, because they don't understand what this is all about. And they don't understand that self-knowledge, which repatriates them to their own nature, is not about renouncing the action, but renouncing the actor, the identification with oneself as an actor. They don't understand that. And he says, for every verse that they will quote from the Veda, Satyam Vada, Dharmanchara, I can also quote so many things from the same Veda. But then, to the contestation that the first portion of the Veda, which talks about dharma, is useless, Adi Shankara says he will not go that far to say that. In fact, it is extremely useful if it is seen as a means. Adi Shankara says the samsarinaha, samsarins have to clean up their act. Literally. Or rather clean up their actions, so that the acts which was, when we were talking about the first type of people who are identified as the doers and take the doing to be the ultimate end, here the samsaris who want to clean up their act/actions start to take the actions as a means for what? For self-cleansing, so that the knowledge of the self shines, especially when someone as flawless as Bhagavan Krishna is giving this knowledge. Where else will it go? It has to shine, that's its nature. How can it not deliver? Of course it will deliver. So for this deliverance from samsara is not like, being lifted up from the flash floods, and then, being lifted and you are saved. First you were enslaved, now you are saved. This is not what it is. This is coming from your own volition and desire and the viveka vairagya to give up that which does not further and to pursue that which does. And in the pursuit there is a cleaning up of the action, whereas the same dharma which was binding in the first instance when it was the end, now opens doors and windows never thought possible when you become an adherent of dharma in order for the self-knowledge to bless. Not because you are wanting just to be known as a dharmic person. So the dharma is a crucial thing that helps one to cross over. So so there is no difference, there is no clash between the two banks, the dharma bank and the knowledge bank. They are not, opposed to each other. In fact, you can craft a boat with the dharma bank and paddle across the waters of samsara using the oars of self-knowledge. This is the best way to do it. And Adi Shankara acknowledges that everybody is not ready to renounce. It's easy to renounce renunciation altogether and say that is not for me. And then out of taking pity, and because the teaching, pity here means karuna, not pity, but what is that other words? Kindness, compassion. Out of compassion, taking pity on the samsaris, oh you poor samsaris. And out of compassion, Bhagavan Krishna in these 700 verses helps us to craft the boat of dharma that makes it seaworthy in the raging waters of samsara. But we need the oars of self-knowledge to carry it through, otherwise it just becomes a sitting duck which also sinks. Yeah. It develops cracks if it becomes the end. But you make it the means. And he quotes a very poignant quote from the Bhagavad Gita. Yoginaha karma kurvanti sangam tyaktva atma shuddhaye. In order to purify, and a very unhappy translation here, the internal organ, antahkarana. So, in a very good translator, but this one thing can give wrong meaning. Very nice translation, but a very unhappy choice of words here. Especially now we are living in a very medical, medically aware world, and everyone is like a doctor and everybody is talking about all kinds of organs. So here we have to purify the kidneys or the liver. The internal organ, here is the direct translation of a very untranslatable word, antahkarana. Karana means the means. Yeah. So the antaha, inner. So the internal, antaha, organ, karana. Yeah, so here antahkarana means the heart. The knowing, the place of knowledge, heart/mind/buddhi. This is what together is called antahkarana. The inner instrument is better. Yeah. The inner instrument of knowing has to be cleansed by dharma, being the Windex, which cleans off that surface in which your own face as Bhagavan shines. You have darshan. And Adi Shankara says in two places, rarely does he use the first person for himself. But here, in the Bhagavad Gita, he uses it in two places, in the opening Bhashya. The first place he says is that there are so many contentions that tire me out. and even though the verses are there, and it is supposed to be, they are crafted for ease of understanding, still I find that the contentions, despite them being so easy to understand, the contentions are so many, and nothing becomes a Kurukshetra, a battleground, than the contentions surrounding the Bhagavad Gita. For this reason, Karishyami aham, he says, I am going to attempt a bhashya on this because there are too many contentions, so much that the original meaning is lost. Then towards the end he uses the I word again. And he says that this small bhashya, it's not small, is being attempted by me. It's being attempted by me. Why? Because the words lend them, there are words, he says, and meanings of words, and then meanings of meanings of meanings of words. In other words, too many interpretations, where the original purport is unclear. And the same word can mean many things. Like jnanam means upasana, and jnana karma samuchaya. It means upasana actually. And so he says, so I have to intervene. This is not even by choice, but I have to intervene to do my part, to illustrate that this is something we have to bridge, this gap of wrong interpretations and multiple interpretations. This is why he is doing it. And then he says that like in every other text, we have to keep in mind what is called Anubandha Chatushtayam. Oh, I only knew Sadhana Chatushtayam. That itself was hard to memorize, because actually even though it says 4, the other 6 are hidden somewhere. 6-pack is hidden in this 4-pack. Now you say Anubandha Chatushtayam. What is this? This is the criteria for looking at a well-crafted work, a treatise. So it should lay its purpose, prayojanam, at the outset. What is it for? Now that you have listened to 2 lectures, what is the prayojana of the Bhagavad Gita? Moksha. It is freedom from samsara. That is the prayojana. Then for whom it is, we have to see, because you can't say that, you can't force this prayojana on all the people. Come ye, come one, then you will become Jehovah's Witness. You are not a Vedantin. If you start touting this knowledge on the roadside, I am going to liberate you, but I don't want to be liberated. No, you need this. You need this knowledge more than you need food and water. Correct? So therefore what? Therefore what? Who is it for? Adhikari. For the adhikari. And who is the adhikari? Mumukshu. Jignasu. The one who has made the connection between knowledge and renunciation, between dharma as an end versus dharma as a means, between seeing that the doing is actually my undoing. The doing, I cannot produce the limitless. The limitless is not a product. It is uncreated, and therefore it has to include me, and I have to discover it as the truth of myself. That is a mumukshu, that is a jignasu. And then it should have a subject matter, correct? And what is the subject matter? The subject matter is twofold here. One is dharma, the way of life, and the other is the vision of the Upanishad. Twofold subject matter. Dharma Shastra and Adhyatma Vidya, Atma Jnanam. And that's why we repeat that at the end of every chapter. What do we say? Krishna Arjuna Samvade. And what kind of a samvada? Brahma Vidyayam. And then? Yoga Shastre. These are the twofold Vishayas, subject matter. Brahma Vidya, Atma Vidya, self-knowledge. And then a conducive lifestyle to assimilating this knowledge. Dharma Shastra, which is called Yoga Shastra, Karma Yoga Shastra. This is the Vishaya. And then what is the final thing in the Anubandha Chatushtayam? The connection. Sambandha. And of course, what is the Sambandha? The knowledge that delivers from samsara and the mumukshu. There is a sambandha, correct? So the adhikari and the prayojana are linked. The adhikari and the vishaya are linked. The subject matter and the book that reveals pratipadaka pratipadya sambandha, that is linked. The vishaya is linked with the book because the book unfolds the subject matter. The one who reads it is blessed, and therefore the subject matter is connected to the reader, to the adhikari. These are all the various sambandhas, some overt, some not so evident. And so this is what is the whole kind of a thing. And then he says that there is no clash between dharma, karma, knowledge and renunciation, as long as we see the first two as being the rungs of the ladder that prepare us to have the vision. Yeah. One is the means, the other two is the end. The other two combination is the end. Knowledge and renunciation is the end. Dharma karma is the means. And if dharma karma becomes the end, the knowledge goes out of the window. And if dharma karma is not there also, the knowledge has no chance to come into the window, because it only speaks to someone whose heart, whose antakarana is pure. That is how this knowledge unfolds. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.